The state of North Carolina has tasked Charmaine Fuller Cooper to uncover this frightening past.
The first time last year that I actually had to read an actual eugenics board record of an individual patient case file, I literally sat at my desk and cried for about 15 minutes.
Her research shows about 7,600 people in North Carolina were sterilized. Procedures here continued into the 1970s, well after many states had stopped. So it's estimated about 2,000 victims are still alive. In later years, the focus targeted women on welfare, many of whom were African American. North Carolina has become the only state to take steps to compensate victims. For nearly 10 years, the state legislature has written reports, submitted bills, even heard testimony from victims.
I wouldn't have mind having me a daughter, maybe 2, maybe 3. The state need to award us, because we got to carry on.
But so far, these victims have received nothing more than apologies from Governor Bev Perdue.
I just came here as a woman, as a mama, and as a grandmama, and as governor of this state, quite frankly, to tell you it was wrong.
Compensating victims could cost tens of millions of dollars during a time of budget cuts. State legislators, like Representative Ruth Samuelson, are worried about money.
We had to set priorities, things like, do we compensate eugenics victims or do we put classroom teachers in place? We had to make choices.
Is it possible these victims will, in the end, walk away with nothing?
That is a possibility if we don't have legislators who are willing to stand up for the victims.
Charles Holt knows he may never see a dime.
So the state of North Carolina has said they're sorry. Is that enough?
No.
What more do they need to do?
I think they should give us some compensation off of it.
2012 could be the year the legislature acts. Charles Holt holds out hope for an award he says will fit the crime done to him more than 4 decades ago.
What's just horrible is they did this to person after person after person.
Yes, ma'am. It's real. It's just disgusting.
Elizabeth Cohen, CNN, Linwood, North Carolina.
It's hard to believe Americans were forcibly sterilized within the last 40 years. Joining me now to discuss it is Paul Lombardo, author of 3 Generations, No Imbeciles, Eugenics, the Supreme Court, and Buck versus Bell. Also, Areva Martin is a disability rights attorney and children's advocate. I appreciate both of you being with us. Paul, it's stunning that this happened and that in some places, I mean, anyone could suggest someone else should be sterilized.
Well, North Carolina was unusual in this sense. Most states required people to be in institutions, to be civilly committed before they could be operated on. But North Carolina was wide open. A social worker, a doctor, the sheriff, the truancy officer, or a teacher, anyone could make this recommendation to the eugenics board.
And it could be just because someone was promiscuous?
Certainly, sexual misbehavior was high on the list of things that people were sterilized for, not only in North Carolina, but in other states as well.
Areva, what's the likelihood that anyone will actually get compensated, and how do you even put a dollar figure on something like this?
You know, Anderson, when I hear this story, it just makes my blood boil. And to hear that the legislators are saying we're sorry, as if that's enough, that's just half the role here. We're talking about a matter of distributive justice. This is a matter of justice, plain and simply. The state took an aggressive step, intentional acts of violating these people. I mean, your most inalienable right, your right to be a parent, your right to reproduce was, you know, taken away from these individuals simply because some board determined that they weren't fit. They weren't, you know, capable of producing the kind of children that the state deemed, you know, desirable. So I hope that the legislature in this case steps up and compensates, makes whole these individuals who've suffered such an atrocity.
And Areva, who was disproportionately